Donna, do you have a mic on? No. There's a nice little, yes. There's one? Yes. Equal out.
There we go. All right. Can everyone hear me now? Good. So nice to be with you for a change. And on a beautiful day. Although I was here yesterday hoping that Porch Fest in Buffalo was going to be a nice place to visit. It was very wet. So our opening words this morning are from Matthew Johnson. They are called For 5,000 Years or More. For 5,000 years or more than 15,000 generations, human beings have been invoking spiritual power. My predecessors and yours have gathered together to make sense of their lives and their place in the cosmos. And they have spoken aloud and invited what they conceived as sacred and powerful to be with them. They called upon the spirits of the air and earth, fire and water. They called the bear and deer. They asked for the raven to protect them. They pleaded for the heroes of old to slay the monsters of their fears. They sang songs that they learned from their grandparents and moved in the appointed ways, or in ways that were new but felt like the right thing to do. And they imputed power to these spirits and to the memories of heroes. They called them gods. And they were invoked, Vishnu and Kali, Yolim, Odin, and 100 million others. Every group of people everywhere. They gathered to make sense of their lives and to make sense of their place in the cosmos, and they called these spirits to be present to them. And so do we. So do we, gathering this morning to make sense of ourselves and this universe in which we live as best as we are able. And we call ourselves to worship together, and we invoke the power and wonder of life itself, that to which all those spirits of animals and memories of heroes pointed the way. We invoke that power which is, we know, always sound, always with us, but which we sometimes forget about. We forget that we are a part of the whole of creation. We forget that we are stardust. We forget that we are capable of miracles, first among them, that we can love. We forget these things, so we invoke the power of existence so that we can remember, so that we can lift our eyes and open our ears to the true and beautiful. For 5,000 years or more, we have done this. In many tongues, in many ways, we have done this. And so we continue that ancient tradition in our way and in our time, and so let us now worship together. And will you join me in the words for the chalice lighting, which are written in your order of service? May the light we now kindle inspire us. Enough. Okay, and our first hymn is number 360, Here We Have Gathered. Come and step inside. May all who seek here find a kindly word. May all who speak here feel they have been heard. Sing now together this our heart's own song. Here we have gathered, called to celebrate days of our lifetime, matter small and great. May we all ages, women, children, men, infants and sages, sharing what we can, sing now together this our heart's own song. Life has its battles, sorrows and regret, but in the shadows let us not forget. We who now gather know our Father's pain. Kindness can heal us as we give, we gain. Sing now in friendship this our heart's own song. If everyone would like to take their seat for the responsive reading. Blessed are those, which usually we put the number in here, but we don't have it. Look it up. Is that it up there, the reading number?
No, I didn't get the reading. I thought it was something special you had because you.
Oh, no, the responsive reading?
Yes, I thought something.
Yeah, I thought I put the number in the email. I totally don't remember which number it is.
728.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm lucky I can remember my name these days. Okay, blessed are those, number 728. Blessed are those who yearn for deepening more than escape, who are not afraid to grow in spirit. Blessed are those who bring their children, who invite their friends to come along, to join in fellowship, service, learning, and growth. Blessed are those who know that the church is often imperfect, yet rather than harbor feelings of anger or disappointment, bring their concerns and needs to the attention of the church leaders. Blessed are those who speak their minds in meetings, who can take and give criticism, who keep alive their sense of humor. Blessed are they indeed. And now we have set aside a few moments for a new member ceremony, which Erica is going to look after.
We have 2 new members, and one of them is here today, Meg. We just wanted to recognize Meg, and if I could have Paul, President, come up for a minute, and could I have Meg come up for a few minutes? And then in your order of service, we're going to try. In the order of service, there is a reading. So, okay. Actually, come up here. And this is yours. It's a different one. So what we're going to try is I'm going to, the first part, members affirmation, I'm going to say a line and you're going to repeat after me. And it's written on here so we can just read it. The second part, it says the congregational covenant. You guys have a reading. You guys can read in unison together. You guys are very good at that. And then the third part, together, we will say we pledge and affirm to promote, and then we'll do the 7 principles, and I'll just ask 7 people to read them, and they're written down so we can read them. I know it's confusing, we will go slow. Okay, so I'm gonna read a line, and you're gonna repeat after me. Meg will repeat after me. After much thought, wait, let me get your microphone. I'm sorry. After much thought and meditation, the spiritual path is the one I have freely chosen.
The spiritual path is the one I have freely chosen.
To this congregation, I pledge my talents, time, financial support, and love.
My talents, time, financial support, and love.
I pledge that I will not cease in my quest for spiritual knowledge.
I pledge that I will not cease in my quest for spiritual knowledge.
I accept fully the responsibilities inherent in the life that encompasses the 7 principles.
And the life that encompasses the 7 principles.
And the congregational covenant. You guys will read your part in unison. Good luck.
We welcome you as once we were welcomed ourselves. We seek to be open and inclusive, respecting your inherent dignity, your ideas and your vision, in times when it is easy and in times when it is difficult. We welcome you as an equal member of this congregation, of this faith, and of our shared spiritual journey.
And together, we pledge and affirm, promote. And then, would you mind saying the first one?
Okay. The inherent worth and dignity of every person.
Justice, equality, and compassion in human relations.
Acceptance of one another. Encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations.
A free and responsible search for truth and meaning.
The right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregation and in the society at large.
The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all.
Respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part.
And with that, Meg, we would like to welcome you to the First Unitarian Church of Niagara.
Thank you.
And the President Paul has a certificate to present.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much.
And you have a welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And now we would like to honor any joys and concerns that might have occurred to us during the past week. Who would like to come up and share a joy or a concern? Or stay in your seat and share a joy and a concern, or a concern.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, big candle here. Yeah, I finally got my my car back. As you all know, my car was stolen. It's out here. It's got a club on it. It's also been upgraded by Kia free of charge. And I do plan on scheduling at a garage someplace. They'll put a hidden GPS in there, which runs off the car battery, but also has its own independent power source. So when the perpetrator shut the car off, it doesn't matter. It will still ping in real time to my phone. That's what I plan on doing. And that way, just in case they bypass the anti-theft stuff.
So glad they found a solution for that.
Oh, and one more thing. I did file, there's a lawsuit against Kia. I guess I settled for over 200 million, something like that. And the average person might be getting back about $6,000. And whatever it is, I don't care. Even if they only send me $50, I'll take it, because they owe me something for making it easy to steal these cars.
That's right. All right, who would like to go next?
Erica has, oh, wait a minute. No, Teresa, you know, in true Unitarian fashion, we're seat of the pants here. So here we go.
I just wanted to say, next Sunday, we're celebrating my parents' lives. We're going to be scattering their ashes out on the trails near their home. And Bill has been really, really helpful for me. He's helping me put together some music. He helped me put together a slideshow of photos of my parents. And I just wanted to thank Bill for giving me a hand.
Well, that's great. The benefits of community, all right? Anyone else? Erica?
I just wanted to say that my mom's roommate Nadja's birthday went over very well. She turned 98, and a few people from the church stopped by, and it was very nice. We had lots of yarn and lots of wine. It was very nice.
Oh, great. Any others? Yes? Do you like the microphone or no? Okay. Okay, well, it's kind of nice that the joys did outweigh the concerns this week. It's always good to see that. I'm going to light a candle. I became a grandmother again in the middle of March, and I was very happy about that. I now have 3 grandchildren, ages 23, 9, and 2 months. Quite a stretch. And I will light one last candle for any unspoken joys or concerns in our congregation. And now we will take the offertory. reading that I chose for this morning is from Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding Sweetgrass, which I think I introduced to you once before. She starts with, I remember walking a street in Manhattan where the warm light of a lavish home spilled out over the sidewalk on a man picking garbage for his dinner. Maybe we've all been banished to lonely corners by our obsession with private property. We've accepted banishment even from ourselves when we spend our beautiful, utterly singular lives on making more money to buy more things that feed but never satisfy. It is the Wendigo way, and Wendigo she refers to earlier in her book as evil or sin, or sort of having the devil on your shoulder, that tricks us into believing that belongings will fill our hunger when it is belonging that we crave. On a grander scale, too, we seem to be living in an era of Wendigo economics, of fabricated demand and compulsive overconsumption. What native peoples once sought to rein in, we are now asked to unleash in a systematic policy of sanctioned greed. The fear for me is far greater than just acknowledging the Wendigo within. The fear for me is that the world has been turned inside out, the dark side made to seem light. Indulgent self-interest that our people once held to be monstrous is now celebrated as success. We are asked to admire what our people once viewed as unforgivable. The consumption-driven mind masquerades as quality of life, but eats us from within. It's as if we've been invited to a feast, but the table is laid with food that nourishes only emptiness, the black hole of a stomach that never fills. We have unleashed a monster. Ecological economists argue for reforms that would ground economics in ecological principles and the constraints of thermodynamics. They urge the embrace of the radical notion that we must sustain capital growth and ecosystem services as if we were to maintain our quality of life. But governments still cling to the neoclassical fallacy that human consumption has no consequences. We continue to embrace economic systems that prescribe infinite growth on a finite planet, as if somehow the universe had repealed the laws of thermodynamics on our behalf. Perpetual growth is simply not compatible with natural law, and yet a leading economist like Lawrence Summers of Harvard, the World Bank, and the US National Economic Council issues such statements as, there are no limits to the carrying capacity of the Earth that are likely to bind at any time in the foreseeable future. The idea that we should put limits on growth because of some natural limit is a profound error. Our leaders willfully ignore the wisdom and the models of every other species on the planet, except, of course, those that have gone extinct. It's Wendigo thinking. So the sermon this morning is a little bit taken off of some Robert Kimmerer insights. And it talks a bit about my experience, of course. So at the end of April, I was in Flagstaff visiting my son, his partner, and my new granddaughter, whose name is Willow. At that time, she was just 6 weeks old, and like every new baby, a perfect miracle in our eyes. She is a strong, smiley, happy soul except when she's hungry, which still happens pretty often. Her parents had chosen not just a home birth for her, but also what they call a water birth, all of which made me, her nanny, very nervous. They had a midwife and a backup plan for the hospital, of course, but still, it was all just a little bit woo-woo to me. For the parents, the prospect of the home birth promised a sense of unity and accomplishment, and a baby who had been brought into the world warmly and gently instead of into the bright clinical environment of a hospital. I wondered if the risk was worth the benefits, or were these two parents caught up in some magical thinking? Well, I don't know if it's due to her birth experience or not, but when I was there, I found Willow to be already very good at rolling with the punches. Whatever the adults wanted to do, she was happy to do it. And one of the things that we did was travel to Sedona, which, as you know, is not very far from Flagstaff. We went to take a hike with our dogs and pick up some spring water that they regularly fill these huge containers with this beautiful spring water, and that's all they drink. It's so nice. They have 3 dogs, and I have 1 dog. Willow slept the whole way there in the car seat, and then she slept some more on her mother's chest while we walked. Now, I've talked about Sedona here before, and woo-woo is also a word that comes to mind when you visit there. The town itself is a haven for psychics, New Age shops, and spas. It's set in a beautiful red rock canyon where energy vortexes wind the trees into Twizzlers. There's no denying that Sedona has a certain energy that is palpable when you sit in a place like the top of its famous submarine rock. I do kind of love being there. It's a place like the one described by this haiku, which was written by an anonymous person in the 14th century. All tempest has, like a navel, a hole in the middle, through which a gull can fly in silence. Sedona is one of those holes described by the poet. Writing about this poem and concept in a book called The Book of Awakening, Mark Nepo says, "At the heart of all struggle, there is a peaceful, enduring center, if we can only reach it. All of the wisdom traditions affirm this." Many of us, mere mortals, are constantly seeking this space, this hole. That's why we are here today. After a week of struggle with the real world, we seek a peaceful, enduring center so that we can fly off and make it through another week. It seems, however, that those of us who come to a church to find our spiritual centers are in the minority these days. The predominant trend is to seek a center in non-traditional ways, as Russ Dutat recently wrote in a New York Times article called "Be Open to Spiritual Experience, Also Be Careful." Dutat, full disclosure, he is a self-declared, rather traditionalist Christian who sees that in post-COVID times, people have not returned to their churches and denominations of any ilk. They have moved instead to what he calls de-institutionalized spirituality. He names astrology, manifesting desired outcomes, psychedelics, and hallucinogenic drugs as part of these forms of spirituality. To quote Dutat, "In certain ways, this is an extension of the self-help spiritualities that have been attached to American religion since forever. But right now, The magical dimension is more explicit. The connection to old-time religion, weak to non-existent. Dutat feels that the reason behind this movement is a reaction to what he calls the stringent materialism present in our society. Plus, it's a rebellion against the Christian past, where the majority of churches were patriarchal and chauvinistic. In other words, under the control of white males. As our reading from Robin Wall Kimmerer says about materialism, maybe we've all been banished to lonely corners by our obsession with private property. And when you are in a lonely corner, what do you turn to nourish your spirituality if you are rebelling against white males and organizations that have traditionally sucked wealth away from the poor, redistributing it to those white males? Woo-wooism gives the appearance of satisfying your needs without the unwanted strings attached. But woo-wooism still comes from other human beings. As Dutat points out, if the material universe as we find it is beautiful, but also naturally perilous and shot through with sin and evil whenever human agency is at work, there's no reason to expect that any spiritual dimension would be different. Like the home birth, there are risks to what I would call this unmoored spirituality. One extreme example came from Sedona itself, where in 2011, Guru James Arthur Ray led participants in a sweat lodge where 3 people died and 19 were overcome by heat. Seeking a transcendent experience, Ray's followers participated in days of mentally exhausting events that included fasting before going into that sweat lodge. Even though people were becoming ill and passing out, Ray did not want them to leave the lodge and only opened the flap briefly every 15 minutes to bring in more hot rocks. One of the few participants who's spoken about this tragic incident, whose name is Beverly Bunn, said that even though people were gasping for air and collapsing, Ray encouraged everyone to stay inside. Bunn felt that she only survived because she was able to crawl to a spot near the opening. In a more recent incident, more than 600 people are missing and 201 bodies have been found at the site of a doomsday cult in Kenya, led by Pastor Paul Mackenzie, who convinced his followers that they could reach heaven faster if they starved to death. His Good News International Church, I don't know what was the good news about it, operated for 20 years, unfettered by any connections to any religious organization that included a hierarchical structure or a clearly stated belief system before this extreme fasting was discovered. If you are a person who is at all introspective, you're pretty much bound to be a seeker. You're going to live your life looking for that center, that whole of peace. We here are seekers, and our chosen religion, Unitarian Universalism, allows us to be seekers, each of us in our own chosen way. But it holds us in safety. Russ Dutat says, the decline of churches and denominations and the rise of deinstitutionalized spirituality means that more and more religious lives are lived in between worldviews, in experimental territory, where it's a mistake to expect coherence, theological consistency, a definite set of prior assumptions or beliefs. Experimental territory. As we see in the above examples, experimental spiritual territory can be a dangerous place. We all have family members and friends who are a little on the woo-woo side of spirituality. They are looking for sustenance for their souls, but just maybe it's the same as looking for love in all the wrong places. I know talking to these people is not easy. Just talking religion is taking a risk. But it seems to me that if you want spiritual freedom, but you also want safety, this is a place where you could find it, here in a Unitarian Universalist church. We take our fourth principle seriously, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We may not see a lot of experimental experiences in some of our smaller churches, like this one, but Unitarian Universalism as a whole really does fit a wide range of seekers. In our denomination, we have theists, atheists, pantheists, polytheists, and pagans. We draw on all of the world's traditional sources of wisdom: Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, and science. Our churches can be home to those who believe in reincarnation, who celebrate the solstices, who will walk a labyrinth and meditate, who might enjoy a tarot card reading and hearing about energy vortexes, who believe that transcendental experiences can happen from ingesting psilocybin mushrooms or gazing at the stars. Yes, we have our woo-woo side, but we are not woo-woo risky. We have an organization and a democratic structure that frees us to make our explorations without judgment while still kind of keeping our heads, being rational. Because there are other souls around us who, while allowing us our views, also express their views, which might be quite different from ours, but they might be there to help ground us when we need it. We also have ministers and officials who are highly educated and who are our chosen spirit guides. They are elected by us, the members of our congregations. Mysticism has always been a part of religion. I remember reading a novel called The Dove Keepers by Alice Hoffman, and Alice Hoffman spent 5 years researching and writing this story, which was based on a true event, the Siege of Masada. And when I read it, I was struck by how much mysticism she included in the book, because mysticism was a part of the early development of Judaism. That part of religion has faded somewhat, however, and that may be a piece of the why young people in particular are turning away from organized religion and feeling that they can find spirituality on their own. Dutot's criticism, though, is that it is unclear to what extent any of this can be called belief. In the UU Church, the word belief covers a wide range of thinking that has the freedom to evolve over time. But we do have a foundation. Our bedrock is our principles and our sources. We don't talk a lot or often about the sources, but the first on the list of those sources is direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder, which seems to me clearly addresses the woo-woo part of the spiritual experience that so many people are seeking. As a denomination, apparently we haven't gotten the word out well enough to impress all of those folks who are out there searching. As Dutot says, they're searching without maps and playing around in half belief. We here have a good map. We have the structure for safety, but not enough people know about it. What some of our larger churches are doing is expanding their repertoire of spiritual experiences beyond the traditional Sunday service. They're offering labyrinth walks, simplified midweek services, meditation classes, and even tarot card readings. Robin Wall Kimmerer tells us, it is the Wendigo way that tricks us into believing that belongings will fill our hunger when it is belonging that we crave. When you start your spiritual journey with the belief that you will find satisfaction with something other than an organization that has some history and structure and standards, you leave yourself open to the wrong kind of belonging. Belonging that does not begin with love, but with the narcissism of a James Arthur Ray or a Pastor Paul Mackenzie. The work for us is to let the world know that people looking for woo-wooism are welcome in our churches, just as we welcome people of all races and ethnicities and all sexual orientations. We offer a place to belong that begins with love, not materialism, and not ego. Small churches like this one might not be able to offer the big, broad smorgasbord of New Age programs like some of the larger churches, but as the word spreads that Unitarian Universalism is a safe place to bring your spiritual quest, whatever that is, people will come. Build it, and they will come. Also, to get back to that gull, which I took that haiku from Mark Nepo's book of Awakening. Nepo says, when in the storm, we are exacerbated by our humanness. When in the center, we are relieved by our spiritual place in the oneness of things. It is how we pass each other from storm to center and back, where you'll find the trials and gifts of love. The circumstances of my granddaughter's birth seemed pretty woo-woo and risky to me, but it was carefully planned and guided with the expertise of a community of people who had knowledge and experience of what to do and how to do it safely. I was told by my son that there were a few minutes when it was a kind of a wild ride, like when he couldn't get the birthing pool filled up fast enough with warm water, but they got through it. And ultimately, it was woo-wooism at its best. Our UU churches can offer the same sort of community to those seeking to birth a spirituality that includes a little woo-wooism without the risk. It might not exactly be the ultimate mystical transcendental experience, but well, you never know. So be it, and blessed be. And thank you, Patty. Our closing hymn is number 113. rise, 10,000 years of rise. do we have any announcements this morning?
We do have one announcement. Well, I have one announcement that we're going to have the board meeting, not board meeting, the annual meeting directly after service. Don't leave your seats. So as soon as we're done, we'll pass out the papers, and I don't think it'll be a very long meeting. And for those of you visiting, you can stay if you want to join a meeting. It's up to you.
Okay, and that's it. Our closing words this morning are from Reese Williams. Remembering our spiritual, courageous ancestors who forsook oppression with security to gain freedom with opportunity, may we go forth to master ourselves by accepting duty with responsibility, by showing balance in our judgments, and by having breadth of vision in our deliberations. May we be exemplars of that spirit, moving forward with conviction and commitment, with unity and without uniformity, with brotherhood and sisterhood, to serve the truth that sets us free. Amen. And will you join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice? We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry until we are together again.
Yes, many, many years ago, since I met Lucy Long, she only stood just 4 feet high.
I probably will buzz off because I've got other people I've got to try and see.
Wrong. That was not right, and so one day to Lucy Long I said, my name is short, so don't be long. Now say that we will wed. Lucy Long, be Lucy Short. I'll love you till I die. Now, Lucy Long, don't be too long in making your reply. If long was short, I'd happy be the wedding ring I've bought. And Lucy Long, it won't take long to make you Lucy Short. I just found